you.
Okay, I have the time as 6:31. So we'll call this work session of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia to order. It's Monday, October the 14th, 2019. Everybody's present and accounted for. First, we'll run through the, being really official. Trying to be organized, Dave.
Who are you?
The regular meeting we have under ceremonial matters. We've got a proclamation for the police department for the Governor's Challenge Award and honoring Mr. Bobby Kenton. We've got, I think Todd was the last one to get that signed.
Yep, signed them. I'm done.
And of course we have the minutes. We won't have a planning commission report. Then we've got the first reading, the second first reading on the ZOA 1904. That's the one where we're just cleaning up the language with our code enforcement officers. And then under new business, we have the Intrepid Marketing Group contract. Did y'all want to talk about that for a minute? Or is
Probably
everybody okay
should.
with it?
Actually, yeah, I'm not sure if you guys mentioned it the last meeting or not, but I know it's on the agenda tonight. And our presentations aren't until this week.
Yes.
There's some discussion about,
There wasn't discussion previously.
okay,
It was I think the first thing that everybody got on that was the email that Butch had sent out with it. What I do know about it, Eric might know a little bit more details, but what I do know about it is part of, in the development agreement, it is part of the shared expenses that was in there. And I think we kind of knew who the company was. But aside from that, I think it's a company that has worked with Casto in their projects
Casto
before.
identified the company and selected them some time ago. And we had started moving forward with them because they were already handling things anyway. They handled the press release from the 26th meeting in August.
is it preemptive to hold the vote tonight before we meet with them next week?
Well, it's actually Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well,
this
what
week.
we're doing is
Oh, this
authorizing her to
week.
execute, which you can choose not to do. It might just be good to get it out of the way, and that way when the time comes, it's her discretion, and if she does something wrong, we'll tar her feather, and we're done.
Kick me out the door.
Yeah.
Well, and Tony had brought up an issue about control too, on some of the, the additional costs that could happen.
In the packet was the first time we'd seen the agreement. So there were two things that just sort of jumped out. One is in the pricing area, there's no cap. There is no control over it. And there are two provisions. There are two provisions that are hourly rate. So it could be any number. You don't really get, unless there's a cap in there, you don't know what you're approving. And then the second thing that seemed to be a little ambiguous was not a little. There was no control term in there. It was not ambiguous. It was, you got two people who are the controlling parties, Casto and the city, and you have no statement about who gives instruction to the PR people. And I can give you a dozen bad things that could happen in that scenario, but you could end up paying half of private PR work in that, which caused me concern. So it's just clarification. So we talked, if y'all wanted to go forward tonight to maybe put a provision in there that qualified those two things as to the mayor being able to negotiate a cap and a control term. But if not, to table it to the next meeting and then have your meeting with them and get on the right page.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather postpone.
I
I
would-
don't
think
like
I-
the idea of,
I like tabling
Going
until
through
next
this.
meeting.
I agree.
Eric, is there any issue that you know about with just putting that
It'll
on?
just delay things, keep things from moving forward with them.
Well, I think next time the whole council should be privy on what's going to be voting on when it's spending $2,000 a month on 11 to 14 hours of work.
Well,
That's-
it would
that's
be,
public.
our half would be
Or
1,000.
1,000, but either way, 11 or 14 hours of marketing for $2,000 is not to me. But we don't know, because we don't know who was privy to what vendors were looked at, so we don't really know.
Well, it's not a matter of the city picking the vendor. This is the vendor that has worked with our developer in the past, and they have that working relationship. And
Yeah, that's completely understandable. I
Right, we
understand all
just
that.
need to be comfortable with.
Well, we
who
need to
they're
have
working
With what our
controls.
what our control and our issues
So
are.
I don't think it's a matter of.
That's fine.
We could pick our own marketing group.
That's fine.
Eric,
Because-
they'll still come this week for all these meetings if we haven't approved the contract.
I would assume so.
That was the only thing I wondered about.
Yeah,
Because where are they based?
North Carolina, I think.
Okay.
South Carolina.
Well, and we do have the potential of using public funds on private issues if we don't have that clarification, that we only pay for what's public. If they do a press release and charge us half to publicize their apartments, that's a violation of state law.
We kind of got a PIO.
Yeah, I wish I got 2 extra grand.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually thought, why aren't we giving this money to our PR department instead of,
Well,
because
because,
that's
well, the
his
issue with
job.
that is, we
On
don't have a
public.
PR department.
Okay, well,
We have-
Brian's,
We have Brian, and I'm not diminishing Brian's role whatsoever, but he is not gonna be the person to put together the sales promotional stuff that needs to go out to potential people that are gonna rent the spaces in the market building, potential colleges that might use the space in the space above that. I mean, there's just the entertainers that might need to come in for the Village Green. I mean, there's a lot of promotional stuff that needs to be done, and that isn't, unless we're really gonna hire, a graphic designer and, layout people and people who have all of those connections to those media groups, the real estate industry groups and things. We couldn't even touch it for $2,000 a month if we had to hire somebody, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's
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 above
something
and
that needs to be
beyond
done.
what Brian's
What-
role is here in the
right,
city,
right.
but he will be used quite a bit. We're gonna use you, Brian.
Thank you.
But I mean,
That's your cook, right?
there's gonna be a lot of coordination between, releases and things that the city puts out. It's all gonna go hand in
Yeah,
hand.
that's all part of the meeting on Wednesday.
okay.
Yeah, mine was really low too. There must have been some basketball players in
I
there.
don't know, but
I need.
I don't like being that low.
Okay, but I mean, if y'all feel better about postponing it, I'm fine, because, I mean, I have as much information as all of you do, so.
I think it'd
Okay.
be better and get those things clarified in the contract.
Sorry, Eric. We'll have to just do a little double time if we need to. But when we get to that, when we approve the agenda, approve it as it is, and then we can, when this item comes up, then we
Make the
can.
motion.
Make a
motion.
Yeah,
Table it.
Table till October 28th.
Okay, and that's the meeting. All right, so let's go to the work session agenda. I know, I think our work session's gonna be more, any correspondence anybody needs to talk about? City attorney's report?
Just a executive session, and I think it involves personnel and potential litigation matters.
So Brian is after the extra $2,000 a month. One way or another.
Okay, the ongoing projects list. Was there a handout or was that our email?
The email. You want the email?
Did we need to go through any of that?
He gave supporting documents to go with, every sort of area inside the email. It was very
I
thorough.
should have it here too.
Was it Butch that sent that out?
Yeah, it was on October the 11th.
Thank you. There it is.
He's got, right now with the town center stuff, our revenue expense plan is, we're tracking right along with what we've all been looking at as far as, our budget. he's talked to some other, vendors and contractors. They all think that we're right in line, right, with like the parking deck construction. Let's see, I think he had sent out, there was a little bit of an update on the revenue and expense budget. And he's got that. He talked to me about the employee group health premiums, and that was in his email as well. They, were facing a pretty substantial increase, so they've been working and negotiating that down as much as they could. So.
Just for background, they were at over 19% last Wednesday. So to get them down to 13.9, staying with the same vendor was pretty good. And he was working with 3 or 4 different groups. So just so y'all know,
Yeah.
he did make some.
It's moving the wrong way.
Okay, so now we'll move on to item B, discussion of the parking enforcement and the booting. Just because we do have an exec session, and I'm afraid we could spend a whole lot of time on this. I'd like to limit the discussion to about 10 or 15 minutes in the work session, because we're not taking any action that I'm aware of at the council meeting. So let's everybody
Just this?
give out your thoughts and what you want to do. No, Chuck, I'm going to turn this over to
Man.
Chuck.
How many trees gave their lives here, Chuck?
What I've put together to you is kind of a lot of different options, a smorgasbord, if you will. The top is a draft ordinance, which is not a per se ban on booting, but rather would require specific signage outside the locations of any business that wants to do booting. And part of that is because there's a good bit of confusion, especially in this shopping center, where people have a hard time distinguishing that these are 2 different properties. That the Barron's property is separate from the locations that have Firehouse and First Watch and all those located in it. So this would, and one of the concerns we have is because there is a state statute that deals with towing when vehicles are left on property. It's very specific, and the state has kind of taken action there. There is absolutely no statute that allows or provides for booting under the law. So it's kind of at your own risk thing, and lays out there for people to be sued if they want to, but we don't know that we want to go there. So that is the first is an option that requires detailed signage. The second is what is a ban on booting, and I've left in the back section copies of the Gwinnett County, Cobb County, Clayton County, Cherokee County, I believe City of Cumming and the City of Kennesaw, all who have enacted bans on vehicle immobilization. I put copies of their ordinances in there as well, and then I've also included, just for your to have some comparison, a copy of OCGA 44-113, which is the state law that deals with the towing, and it shows all the regulations and that involved. But that kind of gives you some options to work from, and then we can fine tune, where we go from there, depending on how you all want to proceed. We want to give you all some definite materials to work from.
No planning staff here now?
No, I think he's out of town. He sent a late email, you might not have seen it.
No.
I asked Brian to print these out to give you a little bit better perspective. The driveway is actually the dividing line between the 2 properties, so that's confusing. So, from my perspective, I had a conversation with Chief, and he would prefer to keep booting as an option because you can get your car back right then, as opposed to having it towed. My problem with it is, I think this is almost predatory, where people are sitting in the shadows waiting for somebody, not giving them a warning. And I think we either get this resolved or we just ban booting. You know, you either do it the right way where you're not really victimizing people who maybe should know better, maybe not, but you don't know that. So unless you have similar situations to the requirements for towing, you know, we either fix it or it goes away, in my opinion.
No, I sent an email, I hope it got to all of y'all, with my ideas as far as booting goes. If you outlaw booting, it's gonna lead to towing. And having been down in Buckhead many decades ago, and having had my car towed, that was a hours and hours and hours long process to get it back. Had to figure out how to get down to Moreland Avenue. Ended up spending $150 that I didn't have. So I don't necessarily have a problem with booting. I think that some of my suggestions were probably over the top as far as amounts, but I do think if there is going to be booting, that the people who are on site need to be able to be identified, because one of the issues that came up with the people, you don't know if this is just some gypsy traveling around or whether this is a professional, and they were not dressed professionally and they were wearing nothing that denoted them as being in any way tied to the booting company or the owner of the property.
Would we want to place a maximum on the amount they could charge for booting?
My view on this is, this is an isolated incident. And not that it's only happened to one or two people. I understand that it's happened, it has probably happened to more than that. But I mean, it's in the location. This is the only place in the city that we've had any kind of issue like this has come up. And to me, eventually this resolves, because if the property owner continues to do this and people are getting penalized for being here, they're going to stop going. And I think word's already gotten around the city that this parking lot's a mess. And it's hard to get in and out of. You can't find parking. And now to you know, if you score a parking spot there and then you come out and your car's booted, that's going to take care of the parking problem, because people are going to just stop visiting these tenants. So I think eventually the problem works out on its own. The question becomes, do we step in and create more regulation for businesses and for property owners just because these guys are having a problem over here?
I know Jason said he was going to meet with AJ.
He's here. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
And Mr. Polno's here as well.
Okay. So, but I do agree that, you know, better signage, if we're going to do some kind of regulation, I think the regulation needs to be that if business owners or property owners are going to do this kind of thing, that it needs to be clearly stated as people are pulling in. If this sign is where I think it is, which is like as you're pulling into the parking lot.
There's one up there.
That sign is right here.
Traffic, you can't see.
There's one right there.
So this is what I'm doing when I'm pulling into a parking lot. I'm looking for oncoming traffic. I'm already scouting out a parking place and where the store is that I'm going to. I am not watching this sign that I am driving right by. So there's nothing that tells me when I pull into a space that's over here, there's nothing that tells me that I can't park here.
Right.
Or that this parking spot is limited to being here and not, you know, walking and visiting all of these places in here.
Yeah.
So I do think that there needs to be much better signage, and maybe even each parking place gets painted somehow, you know, with a spot that people clearly know where you're going, because the public, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I was really just finding out that these are actually owned by two different people. So you pull in and this sign says, unauthorized or improperly parked vehicles will be booted or towed. If I'm pulling in here and parking over here to walk to this place, I'm thinking, as long as I'm in the
Yeah.
white spaces, the white lines, why is that improperly parked?
Well,
So-
particularly the gentleman that parked in a handicap spot. You know, I mean, there's not that many handicaps.
There's not
No,
that
there's
many
two at each-
spaces.
There's two at each
And
end,
he parked in one of
Right.
them and then he was booted.
and there's no way, there's no way to tell what ends where. Because if you drive in, you would think, I can see where you think this is different, but why is, there's no
Yeah,
delineation
yeah,
here
I-
that this is one area and that's another.
So I think if there's gonna be, just in my view, if we're gonna do any kind of regulation on this, it needs to be for proper signage, so that the public is aware and they're not gonna be victimized or,
I almost think if they're gonna boot or tow, almost every parking space should have a
have a
sign in front of it so that you
Just designated.
You know where you're going.
there's no
Business.
question if you're parking in a space you're not supposed to be, that you're parking there at your own, at your own risk if you.
If I may, the people aren't magically getting out of their cars and levitating over to the adjacent property. They have to walk by a sign to leave the property. And if the signage is adjacent to and directed such that it would be visible to a normal human being walking by, then I think they've met their obligation. You've been to the site, I've been to the site, Dave's been to the site, everybody who's been to the site in the last week, raise your hand. It is,
But the signage is like, there's some say
right
here,
where you
maybe
would see
here.
it if you were
But
walking.
what about if you park here and you walk
Yeah.
on this sidewalk
Then-
along here and cross the street, you're not,
Then this sign that's right here probably would catch your eye.
Mm-hmm.
If not, this sign over here might. But, okay, I could see increasing the signage here, making sure it's facing the right direction.
Still,
Just individually painting or
Still don't
marking
like
the
it.
site.
I still don't think it's enough.
Well,
because this, I see notice unauthorized or improperly parked. Oh, I'm properly parked.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
how
I
I
don't
would
know what that
interpret it
means.
too. And I'm
You know-
thinking about how long of a wait is it for me to get my nails done? I'm not looking at
people are walking,
all that.
they're talking to the person that's
Exactly.
walking with them, they're, you know, engaged in conversation, they're not necessarily
So,
paying attention to
Just so we don't
signs.
use up all our work session
Right.
time. What do y'all wanna do? Anybody else wanna weigh in on what your perspective
I'm on
is?
Barbara's perspective, same thing. I don't want to burden them with more regulations, especially now. I don't like your idea of every parking spot having a sign.
You do
I
like
don't- I do
that?
not like
You don't
that.
like that?
That's each sign, that's expensive.
Well, you make it really easy. You don't boot unless you talk to the person first.
Well, I think that's what, I think we set the criteria for that they have their license, they're insured, that they are properly uniformed, have ID like our solicitors have to have, and that you can only boot once they've been personally advised of the situation. I think, the reason I said that about the booting is that if you don't boot, then the alternative is to tow. And it's
Right.
much better to be able to retrieve your car
No
right
question.
there than it is to, because luckily we don't have that same record driver around anymore, but we had one that was actually towing
Yeah.
cars. And people go get their car, and they could be $300, $400, $500 to get their car back and not even be able to get it back the same day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I know we have issues, but that's what I was saying. I just want us to think about it more comprehensively and come up with an
Well, I
agreement.
think whatever you have to deal with it more than anybody, so I think you have probably the best solution.
Because it's got to be fair to the property owner, but it's got to be fair
Fair
to
to
the
the people,
public
exactly.
who wants to be there. And that's why I just want us to do it that way and not rush into a solution right this minute. Because I think there's more study needs to be done before we come up with that answer.
Well, and quite frankly, the market is going to dictate
Yeah,
a solution because
absolutely.
people are going to make it a point to not go
Exactly.
to any of these businesses if it's going to cost them an extra
That's exactly what's
$75.
going to happen, and it is happening.
So it will end up hurting both property owners if it's not resolved.
Okay, so why don't we leave it as, everybody look through the information that Chuck, has provided. And, I guess let's just get some, if y'all wanna email,
Could we get some response to some of your concerns as well? I'm
Can you-
the property owner.
can you keep it like to 2 minutes?
Yes, I can. So-
Because we're not taking any kind of action at the
I
council
understand.
meeting
I
tonight.
completely understand, but we just want, Dean is my property manager, and so we both came out to just kind of give you guys a little bit of insight as to what we are doing.
Okay,
So we have security out there, and then we have the booting company. The security guards are telling people we will, and they're giving them a card that says you're gonna get booted if you park here. And
we're not gonna do an argument, so
anyway,
we'll give them 2
so-
minutes to state his
so people are
case.
just cursing them out and saying, do what you want, and this is happening again and again, because at this point, I think must be at least 50 or 60 people who have been booted. And we're not making any money out of this. This was something that was done, the reason this is happening is because the center next door is 76% restaurant, we're 23% restaurant. When First Watch came in, they've got 140 seats? 140 seats, people are coming in, waiting, and I understand, completely understand people don't know that they're two different centers. We've also got new signage that will go up in the next few days. Yeah, and so we're doing that. I'm spending $80,000 a year on security to make sure that the centers are separated. I mean, it's nothing coming to our pocket because of this. It's just because of the administration that was here 15 years ago, for some reason Forest Village got omitted from the regulation that they can only have a certain amount of percentage as restaurant. I think everybody is missing that part of it, why that happened. Because it is important to know why this is happening. It's not just because we decided to do this. We were only allowed to have Moe's and Jimmy John's. And even if we wanted to put an ice cream store in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and we couldn't do it because we don't have the restaurant space. But in that center, even if they lose a non-restaurant tenant right now, they could put another restaurant in there. So it's killing our tenant. You've got to think about our tenants as well. And when we were not controlling the traffic, our tenants are saying, well, you know, the nail salon is saying, well, our parking is gone by 10:15 on a Saturday morning. I welcome you all to come out there and look at this. By 10:15, our parking is gone. And I understand the citizens don't understand, but we're open to whatever you have to say. We're doing the signage. We're willing to do whatever it takes. We're willing to work with the city on what needs to be done. This is not. It's not something that was directed at any one person. It's just we don't know what to do either. And I tried to reach out to the property owners next door. They said, well, we're not going to do anything either. And I think it's father and son team that are in North Carolina. They said, well, if you have to boot them or tow them, do it. That's exactly what they told me. So we're here to see what we can do, what you guys can do to help us in a solution with this. We hate it as much as anyone else. There's no, I mean, I have a business in there as well. The jewelry store is mine. So absolutely, we get people who come in and curse at us. So I lose business as well. It's not something that I'm enjoying doing. But yes, we planned our shopping center correctly, and now we're getting penalized. Because yes, I built the office buildings behind me as well. All of that parking is ours. So it's like you have a party and everybody parks at your neighbor's house. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. So I want everybody to kind of understand our side of it as well. It's not really our fault that this is happening. So something has to be done in terms of, and if it was and I'm sorry I've gone over, but if it was something to do with the administration that happened 15 years ago, well, it's the current administration that allowed First Watch. And somebody should have thought about that. That, hey, you know what, we're going to put a 150-seated restaurant in, and this is going to kill the parking. Did anybody look at that parking requirement? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You know, we welcome all questions or, you know, situations, but that's kind of our point. That's why we wanted to come out here and kind of state our point. And I've spoken to Chief Whitehead about this a number of different times, and it's a nasty situation. We do not like it. And I understand it is really, really challenging your resources at the city level and at the police level.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll, if all of you can read through this information, and let's see if we can't just come up with something that
And once again, just for the record, I requested of staff to get the zoning and planning information from the 2003 rezoning that allowed the construction of the property. I've been reviewing it while the gentleman was speaking. I was listening to, and it may be worthwhile to take a look at that.
Well, I reviewed it too, and I was surprised that Fars Village, which is the shopping center with that First Watch, and in 2004, when it was approved, if just rounding up a little bit, it's 19,000 square feet. About 14,000 of that was approved for restaurant. That is a huge amount of restaurant space.
Yeah, but it's BG. I don't know that we could not approve it. I don't know that we could or not,
Well,
because the restaurant falls into BG.
it totally comes down to what the actual zoning is.
We're BG as well. And we can do it. We can't put more than 23% of it.
Well, we can go back and look at that zoning.
Yeah, it
There's
depends
no
on
point
what the
in us
zoning
guessing
was
about
at
it
the
right
time
now.
and blah.
Okay, so let's move on to item C. Actually, that's gonna be postponed because Jason's not here tonight. So we have item D, the moratorium on vape shops. Gretchen, I think this is yours.
Well, Chuck has prepared draft, a resolution. Chuck, do you want to
Sure.
discuss
And
what
those are
you've
in the,
prepared?
those are in the packet,
Yeah.
Already. There's two separate issues. So the moratorium is pretty straightforward.
Thank you, we're gonna excuse ourselves.
Thank you.
It is just a straight moratorium for 12 months until, to provide for a steady time to see what's going to shake out federally or the state as far as regulations on vaping, but it would apply to any new approval for any vape shops. The second is in regard to vaping in public, and Gretchen pointed out one key issue. So what I had done is I had taken section 3455, which specifically dealt with smoking and vaping on city property, and had just changed it to add vaping because my understanding was we did not want to go into 3454, which deals with vaping in public places such as restaurants and those type of places. So what Tony has proposed, I think, is what we need to do in section 3455 would be changed to read: smoking and vaping are prohibited in all publicly owned places, including enclosed facilities, buildings, and vehicles owned and operated by the city. So that would cover the town green and public parks.
So that
as
does,
well.
that's what my concern was.
That change would need to be made.
Yeah,
to
because
it.
I do want it to cover the town.
My
green
concern had
Briscoe
been that
Park.
we couldn't, that we didn't want to step into the issue with restaurants and all that, but this takes care of that.
So I think I probably missed this discussion too, the moratorium. We were talking about 4 to 6 months, but we're going with a year.
We can change that. I wanted
Yeah.
to leave enough, my understanding was we
No,
wanted
I
to,
like that change. I just wondered.
until the UDO could
Our
kick in.
thinking was also to wait and see what happens
Right,
with the
after
state
the
legislature
Yeah, that's plenty of time.
federally, because there's already been talk of
Right.
banning flavored e-cigarettes federally. So
Yeah, City of Atlanta just passed an enclosed public area ban as well. Did you read it? That was really interesting. And they had a provision in there that says prohibits it from 5 feet of a building entrance, windows, and ventilation systems.
which is a lot like smoke.
Yeah.
5
smoke
feet?
Within 5 feet.
5 feet, not 25 feet.
No,
You
5.
It's kind of
So
close.
go home is basically.
Well, no, 5 feet's actually very close.
Well, but still, I mean, from a ventilation system. Just interesting.
But are you okay with what we're
Oh, I'm
proposing?
very good with the 12, yeah. I just
Okay.
wondered what the discussion was.
I think a lot of it's just been
Yeah.
between them, trying to work out the drafts, so I don't,
Within the moratorium, are we really needing to look at the specific public ban yet if we're putting moratorium, or do you want
We're
to?
putting a moratorium on the shops, not on the
Vape
use.
shops.
Well, the vape shops, but then
Then the ordinance prohibits vaping
in
in
public,
In the same
Public
places
buildings.
that we have smoking.
public.
Publicly
we're
owned.
not looking to expand or study that further
I guess we could at some
Um,
point, or if you want
in
to,
the
you know.
next year.
Chuck told me he felt like legally we were on firmer ground if we
We just stated the public.
did it for publicly owned buildings and
space.
grounds
Okay.
that,
Well, it falls in the same category as smoking, so if you don't
Yeah.
wanna inhale somebody else's smoke, you probably don't
So,
wanna inhale their vapor.
Are we treating vaping as smoking in terms of the law
Essentially,
much.
yes.
with just this? Because I'm not seeing that.
It's not, the overlap isn't exact.
No.
Yeah.
The smoking ban picked up momentum, just
Right.
regionally when the tobacco issue came out. And so it's banned. You have to have places in private properties where you can smoke that are outside of the
Hotel
facility.
lobby.
Yeah, there's a ordinance that went around, and it's more extensive to private
Right.
property.
This doesn't seem,
It doesn't do that.
extensive
It
enough.
doesn't go to that area.
It doesn't go on to private property at this point because we're still waiting to find out what the actual issue is. That's
And I don't
the
think
way
we
I
should be
look
on
at it.
private property at
Yeah.
this point.
okay.
Yeah, I think like if you're a restaurant or what, like there's European restaurants and going towards, what is it, no more Lawrenceville, and Europeans smoke. They all smoke. It's annoying, but they smoke. And the
And you can-
restaurants and stuff, they allow it versus like
Yeah.
American restaurants, there's no smoking signs.
Right.
And you can choose not to go there.
And yeah, you can choose out there. Yeah, we
But-
don't go because
still, that,
Or you
restaurants
wear
can,
clothes that you can just put right into the washing machine.
restaurants
throw
can
away.
still determine what their own policy is going to be.
Okay.
And that's private. So it's,
Yes,
the
that
public
they
I
can.
agree with completely because it's parks and walking around in vans and all that kind of stuff.
So,
So
but
there, I'm hearing there's not really consensus then to go any further than just what this is that, okay,
At this point.
at this point, action.
and we are, just to be super clear, we're talking about two different things here.
Right.
One is going ahead and changing our ordinance to ban vaping in publicly owned places. And the second one is a moratorium on having any more vape shops open.
What about ads for vaping that are appearing now on our billboards?
Now you're talking about a First Amendment right issue, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
If we try to
That
ban the
shouldn't bother
content
me.
of advertising,
Okay.
yes.
Cannot regulate content.
I cannot regulate that billboard above Melon
Well, you
Mushroom.
could buy it and then not take the money.
It's gonna come
advertise.
down.
Well, yeah, okay.
So it won't be a problem to get to. Of course, it'll move somewhere else.
But cigarette ads are banned.
Or were we gonna do something tonight on the?
Oh, on the moratorium, it is not on our agenda. So I didn't know this is your issue, if anybody wants to.
Correct?
I think I'd rather publish it on the agenda.
You wanna publish it?
Well,
And
I
do
mean,
it on
put
the
it on the
next
next
agenda.
agenda so that
Yeah.
so that the public knows what we're intending to do.
Okay.
Are you in agreement with that?
Well, it's just, the only thought on a moratorium is that if businesses were thinking about doing something, if they know a moratorium's coming in 2 weeks, you're gonna get a flood of
If they could
applications.
please not open a place
Well,
across from the
and
high
once the
school.
application's put in,
Again,
you can't deny it under the new moratorium,
Well,
so.
what do y'all wanna do?
But that's,
Go ahead with.
I don't know
the
that people are knocking down the door
I would push it through,
to open.
but that's me. I feel strongly about.
Because it's a moratorium, I have no problem with putting it on tonight's agenda and moving it forward.
Now, that would be the moratorium. I think
Correct.
the one on banning it
Right.
publicly on
That
places.
changing of an ordinance, there's no way we're gonna do that without having it properly published. The moratorium is a temporary, action, and although it's written for 12 months at this point, if it turns out that, all this is nothing but, pardon the pun, a bunch of
Smoke and
smoke,
mirrors.
then we can
We can end it.
waive it. I mean, it's just a matter of,
But I honestly, this is just my personal opinion. It has no effect anywhere. But I just think vaping is one of those bad kind of industries that comes along. And we're gonna see a lot of vape shops for a couple of years, and then they're all gonna kind of fade away. You
And of
get
course,
like
this,
one or two.
I think it's important to understand too, this moratorium bans vape shops, and they're defined as having
Right.
25% of their sales or their retail space devoted to vaping and vaping products. So places still like QT, Racetrack, they're still gonna be able to sell it. We're just putting a moratorium on the vape shops that are almost wholly devoted to vaping products.
So if someone so chooses to amend the agenda, then under the approval of the agenda, you would be adding item B under new business.
under your name. So if you'd
Okay,
like to do that.
so
If you don't want to do it, I'm sure one of us will do that.
Yeah, item B, new business.
add item B, new business.
And as far as the moratorium goes, I believe it was on our last work session. The discussion of vape shops was on our last work session agenda, and it's specifically labeled as discussion of a moratorium on vape shops. So there has been some public notice that it was under consideration. It's not on our public hearing agenda, but.
Well, it's also on this one too.
Right.
So,
Right, but if it was something that was of concern to somebody, it didn't come out totally out of the blue.
We have a resolution number for that, Melissa?
So we just say consideration of a resolution to place a moratorium on vape shops.
Consideration
On consideration and,
It's in the packet.
Yes.
Yeah.
On a
Okay.
resolution
It's just-
to,
Is
yeah.
it numbered?
How long is the moratorium?
So just say as
12 months.
included in
12
our
months.
packet dated blah, blah, blah.
condition on a resolution to, y'all have been throwing so many words at me.
Especially the blah, blah, blah part. To get that one.
Yeah, that's the
or
hard.
yada, yada, yada.
Yada,
You pick
yada.
one you like.
Yada yada over the best part.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our work session, which was the hardest part of the meeting tonight. So we'll go in, we have enough time for
We did, yeah, nothing too extensive.
during
Did I get
the
that
work
all right?
session of the mayor